Chapter 340, Jugo and Swajetsu. A loud groan escaped Jugo's mouth as he slowly opened his eyes. He looked around in confusion and immediately noticed that he was lying on a couch and that Swajetsu was lying on another one. Jugo sighed in relief when he realized that Swajetsu seemed to be fine and proceeded to inspect the room he was currently in. He quickly noticed that there were more people in the room. 4 women, 3 of which were leaning onto each other on a couch opposite of Jugo, while the 4th one stood behind them and was massaging the shoulders of the woman sitting in the middle. But a little harder, Karen. Yes, Yuna-sama. Yuna tilde more head pats tilde. Hee, you sure are spoiled, my little Hanada. Hiss. Ha, no, you aren't spoiled at all, my little Lakain. Geez, Anko, you sure love playing with your snake, ha? That was a pretty weak innuendo. Saya can only work with what I get after all. Neither of the 4 were paying any attention to him and apparently didn't even notice that he had just woken up. So Jugo decided to use the time before they noticed him to think about how he got here. Moments later, a frown appeared on his face when he remembered fighting a blonde woman he couldn't hurt no matter what he did. While he was in his crazed state of mind, he couldn't think about the situation correctly, but now that he had calmed down, he realized that he was very likely trapped in a genjutsu. She managed to trap me in a genjutsu while I was in my crazed state. I thought only Sasuke could do that. Moments later Swajetsu woke up as well, but unlike Jugo, he immediately jumped up and drew his sword. Where am I? Who are you people? Where is that bitch that froze my body? I will cut her to pieces. When Yuna heard Swajetsu's questions, she removed her hand from Hanada's head, resulting in her glaring at Swajetsu, who couldn't help but shiver a little due to her glare. Well, you are in the Uzumaki compound. I'm Yuna, the one addicted to head pats is Hanada, the one who can't stop playing with her snake is Anko, and the one whose hands are slowly wandering to places that are usually not involved in a shoulder massage is Karen. Yuna wanted to continue talking, but Swajetsu interrupted her before she could do so. You are Yuna Uzumaki. You are the one who Sasuke wants to kill. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she heard Swajetsu's words. Oh my, so the little boy actually wants to kill me for my little prank, how cute. Swajetsu was shocked that Yuna dismissed Sasuke so casually and was just about to continue talking when the atmosphere in the room changed. Well then, I am right in front of you, so do you want to try to fulfill Sasuke's ambition? The moment Yuna stopped speaking, she flared her chakra, causing the floor and walls to crack. Swajetsu paled when Yuna's powerful chakra washed over him while his body slowly started to turn into water and flow away. Sasuke wants to fight this monster. Is he insane? Ha, strong. Very strong. I will kill you. Kill. Ha. Swajetsu paled even further when he realized that Jugo had snapped and would undoubtedly attack Yuna, which was very likely a death sentence. But just when Jugo was about to lunge at Yuna, he met her eyes and immediately froze up. Jugo felt like he had just met the eyes of an ancient monster, and the urge to kill was snuffed out instantly. His knees crashed on the ground while his whole body started shivering in fear. Monster, AAAM monster. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she saw that. Oh my Tilda, you have pretty good instincts. How interesting, Tilda. Meanwhile, Swajetsu was shocked by what had just happened. As far as he knew, there was very little that could stop Jugo once he started going berserk, but it seemed like a single glance from Yuna was more than enough to stop him. Yuna decided to ignore Jugo's plight and started speaking again. Anyway, as I was about to say before I was interrupted, the person who froze you only delivered you to me and then left again. Additionally, I recommend that you don't call her a bitch in the future since she is my little brother's girlfriend and I might have to discipline you if you curse her again. Understood. Swajetsu's eyes widened as he obediently nodded his head. After feeling Yuna's chakra crashing down on him, he would do everything he could to avoid conflict with Yuna. After seeing that Suigetsu was getting more obedient and that Jugo was slowly regaining his wits, Yuna continued speaking. Well then, you are probably wondering why you are here. The reason for that is relatively simple. I find the condition of your bodies interesting and I want to research them. A frown immediately appeared on Suigetsu's face when he heard Yuna's words. So you want us to be your test subjects? A disgusted frown appeared on Yuna's face before she shook her head in denial. I do not treat people like test subjects. At least not when I don't consider them my enemies. Whenever I want to test something, I will ask you for consent beforehand and you will be compensated for your troubles. If there is something you don't want to do, then I won't do it. Although Suigetsu was still frowning, he still nodded his head in understanding. What kind of compensation are we talking about? Yuna pondered for a short moment before shrugging her shoulders. What kind of compensation do you want? Money, perhaps. There is very little I can't give you with my current position and power. For example, I could slap a seal on your friend over there that stops him from going berserk permanently. As Yuna said that last sentence, she pointed at Jugo, whose head immediately snapped up when he heard Yuna's offer. See, can you really do that? Instead of answering Jugo's question, a chain shot out of Yuna's body and pierced into his stomach. Moments later, a complex array of seals appeared all over Jugo's body, and before he could understand what was going on, the seals started shining and retracting, forming a small Uzumaki symbol on Jugo's stomach. Done. Jugo looked at the small seal on his stomach in bewilderment, but despite not believing for a second that his problem could be fixed so quickly, he felt incredibly calm. The monster inside him that wanted to break out and start slaughtering as soon as possible was gone. He could no longer feel the irrational anger that was always boiling within him. Without a second of hesitation, he bowed his head towards Yuna. Thank you. Whatever it is you want me to do, I will do my best to do it for you. Yuna casually waved Jugo's words away as her gaze landed on Suigetsu. Well, what do you want? The cubic ribature. Suigetsu answered Yuna's inquiry without a moment of hesitation, but Yuna had to shake her head in denial this time. Sorry, but that one isn't possible. Zabuza, the wielder of cubic ribature, is working for me, and I won't backstab my own people. Instead of being said about that, Suigetsu's eyes started shining. Does that mean that Zabuza is here? Inside the Uzumaki compound? That is even better. I will challenge him to a duel and take the sword from his corpse. Yuna could only shake her head at Suigetsu's mindset, which was still very curry, but she didn't mind. In fact, she was certain that Zabuza would accept a challenge like that as well. Fine, I will introduce you to him, and you can issue your little challenge. Suigetsu's eyes shone in enthusiasm when he heard Yuna's promise. Ha ha ha, great, I will finally become the wielder of cubic ribature. Naturally, Yuna could only shake her head at Suigetsu's delusions. He might have been a match for Zabuza 3 years ago when Yuna met him in the Land of Waves, but Zabuza has grown significantly stronger over the course of the last 3 years, so she doubted that Suigetsu was his match. Chapter 341, Jiraiya's Death. A few more months passed, and today was the day when Naruto would return to Konoha, so Yuna, Hinata, Anko, and Karen were currently standing in front of Konoha's gates and were waiting for him. Naturally, Naruto could simply teleport back, but he decided from the start that he would travel normally without constantly teleporting back and forth. After a few more minutes of waiting, Naruto, Ino, Haku, and Jiraiya appeared in the distance, walking at a leisurely pace. While Jiraiya still looked pretty much the same as before, Naruto, Ino, and Haku have grown quite a bit. Currently, Naruto stood at the height of 175 meters and had 2 bangs of his blonde hair framing his face, making him look very similar to his father. He wore a black jacket with orange sleeves and an orange Uzumaki symbol on its back. Additionally, the zipper of his jacket was open, revealing a blue shirt. To round up the look, he wore black trousers and had an orange weapon pouch strapped to his leg. Ino had grown to the height of 165 meters and had developed curves in all the right places. Ino styled her blonde hair into a ponytail reaching her upper back while sporting an orange clip. Ino was clothed in a regular purple outfit consisting of a high-collared blouse and matching apron skirt, but her outfit became slightly more revealing since her childhood days as she was now exposing her midriff. On the other hand, Haku has reached the height of 170 meters. Although Haku's face grew even more beautiful during her travels with Naruto, her overall body was more on the flatter side. She wore her long black hair that had a single white strand loosely and wore a pink, sleeveless kimono with pale orange edges. It was decorated with small plum-colored Uzumaki symbols. After a few more minutes of walking, they were within talking distance, but before anyone could say anything, the atmosphere became dangerous as Yuna's eyes sharpened. Who told her to think you would betray me, Naruto? Everyone had shocked expressions on their faces except for Ino and Haku, who could only smile wryly. After all, Naruto had already told them that this might happen and why Yuna would think that Naruto betrayed her. Meanwhile, Naruto's face became severe when he heard Yuna's words, as he slightly lowered his body so he could dodge away in case Yuna attacked him. I did not betray you, Nei-san. I only decided on a different path. An easier path? No, a different path. The atmosphere became even tenser, and moments later, Yuna clapped her hands together while flaring her chakra, causing the ground underneath her to crack. Very well, then I am sure you are willing to prove your claim. Naruto nodded his head and mimicked Yuna's stance while flaring his chakra as well, causing the ground to get damaged even more. Naturally. Come, Nei-san, I will show you my resolve. Uzumaki Supreme Pranking Style, Descent of a Million Pi. Uzumaki Supreme Pranking Style, Descent of a Million Ca. Smack X2. Two smacks echoed over the meeting point as Hinata slapped the back of Yuna's head, while Ino did the same to Naruto. Yuna, please control yourself so you don't destroy Konoha. Just how many cakes were you about to use? Geez, you are exaggerating, Hinata. I was only about to use a few thousand, hundred, dozens. When Yuna finished speaking, Ino glared at Naruto, who awkwardly averted his eyes while pretending to be innocent. A deep sigh escaped Hinata as she held her forehead. Sigh, where in the world did you get all these cakes from? I know about that machine, but isn't that a little too much? Yuna and Naruto's eyes met as a glint of understanding shot through them. Both of them opened their mouths simultaneously. Uzumaki Supreme Pranking Style, Cake Shadow Clone Jutsu. Quite a few people couldn't help but facepalm when they heard that Yuna and Naruto were using one of the most broken techniques the second Hokage created to produce more cakes. However, Yuna dismissed all of that as her gaze returned to Naruto. She lifted her hand and snapped her finger. Splat. Jiraiya was hit in the face by a cake. You see this, Naruto? This is true art. Only the voluminous and creamy form of a cake could create such a splendid impact. It is impossible for a mere pie to create such a magnificent form. Damn it, leave me out of this nonsense. Jiraiya's complaints were ignored entirely as Naruto lifted up his hand as well, causing Jiraiya to be alerted. Just like Yuna previously did, Naruto snapped his finger. But unlike when Yuna did it, Jiraiya was ready for the attack and managed to dodge the pie. But before Jiraiya could react, the pie changed trajectory and in the end, splat. Smacked straight into Jiraiya's face again. Shit, could you stop doing that? While everyone but Jiraiya was dumbfounded by what just happened, Yuna's eyes shone with wisdom as she analyzed what she had just seen. I see, instead of focusing on the impact, you decided to focus on the flight path instead. Interesting, this is indeed a unique path. Very well, I approve of this. Naruto immediately did a fist pump when he heard Yuna's words. Although he was confident that Yuna would accept his choice at one point in time, he wasn't certain on whether she would do so this quickly. So, this was definitely a win in his book. Yuna nodded in approval, and moments later, her gaze landed on Ino and Haku, resulting in both of them taking a step back. A massive grin appeared on Yuna's face, which gave Naruto, Ino, and Haku a terrible feeling. "Well, how was your first time, you three?" The trio's faces flushed crimson when they heard Yuna's words, and they immediately averted their gazes. Yuna wanted to tease them some more, but someone else interrupted her words. "Damn it. So you really did it while we were traveling? Shit. I missed my chance to gather more research material." The moment Jiraiya finished shouting out his grievances to the world, he realized that he effed up, and not even a second later, quite a few gazes filled with killing intent locked onto him. Cold sweat flowed down his back like a river, and he wanted to speak some excuses, but before he could do so, his body was flooded with pain, and moments later, his consciousness faded into darkness as multiple fists impacted his body. While Yuna and Naruto's girlfriends were beating up Jiraiya, the duo lifted up their hands in a praying position, and Yuna started speaking first, quickly followed by Naruto. "He died doing what he loved, being a pervert. Rest in peace, young pervert." Chapter 342, Helping Out the Future In-Laws. A few days passed since Naruto, Ino, and Haku returned to Konoha, and Ino and Haku were currently sitting in front of Yuna with nervous expressions and a slight blush on their faces. Additionally to Yuna, Hinata and Anko were present as well. While those two had no clue what Ino and Haku wanted from Yuna, Yuna herself could make a good guess. "So, you two wanted to talk to me, please go ahead." Ino and Haku eyed each other nervously before Ino opened her mouth. "Well, when Haku and I started dating Naruto, you said you would help us if there were any problems. Well, there is something we would like your advice on." Yuna nodded her head in acknowledgement and motioned Ino to continue speaking. Ino and Haku shed another nervous glance while the blush on their faces became more pronounced. "We feel like Naruto isn't satisfied after we are after we are done." As soon as Ino finished speaking, a wry smile appeared on the faces of Hinata and Anko. After all, they have had similar problems. Well, since Karen joined them at night, things became at least a little more manageable for them. "Well, that certainly is a problem, but I don't think that is what you wanted to talk about, right?" Ino and Haku shivered a little when they saw the amusement in Yuna's eyes, but Ino continued talking nonetheless. "Oh no. We heard that you usually sleep with more than one person, Yuna, so we were wondering if, Naruto would like to do the same. We just don't want him to be weirded out if we make a suggestion like that. So we wanted to know if he had ever mentioned something like that to you." "Oh, of course we would never actually do that, we were just curious." While Ino was going into denial, a slightly bewildered expression appeared on Yuna's face. Yuna expected the duo to want someone who could convince them that a three-way was a good idea, but it seems they had already convinced themselves about that, while the only remaining hurdle was absolutely trivial. Instead of answering Ino, who was still muttering this and that, Yuna's gaze landed on Anko. "So, Anko, so that I don't misunderstand the situation and talk nonsense. These two in front of me are worried that, when two beautiful women who know each other and are both knowingly the same man's girlfriends ask their boyfriend for a threesome, that he might find it weird. That seems to be the case." A deep sigh escaped Yuna while Ino and Haku looked at her in confusion. They didn't understand why Yuna and Anko were both acting like their worries were unfounded. "Fine, let me explain." Yuna stood up, took out a blank scroll, and unfurled it. "Let's assume this is a list of all the fetishes an average man has." Although Ino and Haku's eyebrows twitched at the length of the scroll, they assumed that there were no relations between its length and the actual number of fetishes. Yuna took the scroll and tore the bottom half off. "This is the number of fetishes he knows he has." She tore it in half again. The ones he is willing to admit he has while drunken with only male people he considers close friends. Again. He will tell his wife about. Again. He will tell his girlfriend about after they slept together a few times. Finally, Yuna crushed the scroll with her hand and tossed it aside. And the ones he will tell his girlfriend about before they had their first time. Hinata, Ino, and Haku were rather dumbfounded by that demonstration, while Anko only chuckled in amusement, and Yuna sat back down. So, any questions? Although Ino and Haku weren't entirely sure what to do with the information they had just received, they decided to keep the conversation going for now. What you want to say is that you are certain that Naruto will happily agree if we ask him, right? Nope. He won't happily agree. He will either instantly tear your clothes to shreds and attack you, or he will carry you to the bedroom first and then do it. Ino and Haku both blushed furiously, despite somewhat doubting that. So far, Naruto has always been very gentle with them, so they didn't believe that Naruto would do that. After taking a few deep breaths, the duo managed to calm down while reducing the redness of their faces. Haku managed to get the picture of Naruto attacking her and Ino simultaneously out of her head first and resumed the conversation. Anyway, so we don't need to be worried that Naruto will have a negative reaction at all, correct? Yep, that's correct. And if he is, by some kind of weird reverse miracle, weed out by it, I guarantee that I will do everything in my might to fix the problem. With Yuna making guarantees like that, Ino and Haku were satisfied and said their goodbyes to Yuna, Anko and Hinata. Later that evening, Naruto, Ino, and Haku were eating dinner together, but Naruto could tell that the atmosphere felt somewhat off. As far as he knew, he didn't pull any major pranks since he returned to Konoha, so he was relatively confident that they were at least not angry at him. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Ino and Haku's gazes met, and this time, Haku was the one to initiate the conversation. Naruto, oh you know, Yuna, While Haku was stammering out words, her cheeks became redder and redder, causing Naruto's eyebrow to rise. Did Nei-san somehow manage to seduce Haku? No, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't do that. Yes? What about Nei-san? Well, you know how she usually sleeps with more than one person, right? Well, that is... Naruto's eyes widened when he realized where Haku was going with this, but before he took any hasty actions, he glanced at Ino, who immediately blushed furiously and averted her gaze. Having his assumption pretty much confirmed, Naruto's eyes shone with desire as he immediately teleported behind Haku and picked her up. What are you doing, Nan? Before Haku could finish speaking, Naruto disappeared and appeared next to Ino this time, picking her up as well. Naruto, you. No need to play coy now. I wasn't expecting you two to be the first ones to suggest a threesome. Threesome? No, we were just Naruto chuckled in amusement and started walking towards the bedroom while carrying Ino and Haku on his shoulders. Well, you can tell me to stop at any time, but I don't think I will be able to control myself after we enter the bedroom, so you might want to hurry up. Ino and Haku somehow managed to blush even harder when they heard Naruto's words, but neither of them said anything to stop Naruto. Well, in the end, they were the ones who asked first, so except for the embarrassment, there was nothing to complain about. Moments later, Naruto reached the bedroom, put the duo on the bed, and then climbed on top of them. Right now, he had a greedy expression filled with desire on his face. I hope you two didn't plan to get any sleep tonight, Tilda. Chapter 343, Helping Out the Future In-Laws Some More. A day has passed since Ino and Haku asked Yuna for advice, and yet again, the duo is sitting in front of Yuna, Hinata, and Anko. However, this time, both had slightly dazed expressions and somewhat loose smiles on their faces. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she saw their expressions, which caused them to awaken from their dazes. Their gaze met Yuna's, who had a mischievous smile on her face, driving Ino and Haku to avert their eyes with blushing faces. Well, Tilda, I assume last night was fun, Tilda. Ino and Haku flushed crimson and lowered their heads. Yesterday was indeed fun. However, it might have been a little too much, so moments later, they lifted their head and glared at Yuna. Did you know this would happen, Yuna? An innocent expression appeared on Yuna's face when she heard Ino's question. Oh my Tilda, I wonder what you are talking about, Ino. Ino and Haku's glare intensified, but neither of them said anything. Naturally, Yuna could make a good guess about what happened. While sleeping with only one girl, Naruto could still control himself, but when another one joined in, he probably went a little wild on them. Well, Ino and Haku both appeared to be fine except for being a little exhausted, so there was no problem in Yuna's opinion. Well, good luck going through that every night. Ino and Haku paled when they heard Yuna's amused words. Yesterday night definitely was fun, but going through that every night is a little too much. Well, you can always add more women to ease your burden, Tilda. The duo's head snapped towards Yuna, giving her an intense glare. Never. While Ino was still glaring at Yuna, Haku's eyes landed on someone else. Anka, I assume you and Hinata were in a similar situation, right? How did you overcome that? Since Yuna and Naruto are siblings, Haku assumed that satisfying Yuna would be rather troublesome as well, so she assumed that Anka could give her and Ino some advice. Anko smirked when he heard Haku's question and gave her a nod. Indeed, recently, the situation became a little easier to handle. I can give you advice if you are interested. Haku eagerly nodded her head and motioned Anko to resume speaking. We added Karen into the mix, Tilda. Haku's face fell when she heard that, and moments later, her gaze landed on Hinata, who she hoped could give different advice. However, Hinata only awkwardly scratched her head and gave her a rather disappointing answer. Although I don't like to admit it, that is literally what happened. Haku's face fell even further when she heard Hinata admitting it. Meanwhile, Ino stopped glaring at Yuna, and after pondering for a short moment, she put her hand on Haku's shoulder, causing her to look at Ino. The duo's gazes met, and after a short exchange, determination appeared in their eyes. Yuna, you are more experienced than us, so could you give us some advice? Yuna nodded in approval at Ino's question. Instead of increasing the harem size, the duo had apparently decided to improve their skills. Personally, Yuna thought that would be a futile attempt, but she didn't mind helping out a little. So, with a swipe of her hand, a circle of seals appeared in midair, and a few seconds later, a mannequin fell out of it. A clearly male mannequin that even had all the important parts attached. Everyone's face deadpanned when Yuna pulled out a naked male dummy out of thin air. The first to regain her bearing was Hinata, who couldn't avert her gaze from the dangling male bits of the figure. Why, Yuna, where in the world did that come from? MHH. What do you mean, Hinata? I was carrying it with me. Why in the world do you carry something like that with you? Well, for multiple reasons. First of all, I plan to use it as a substitute for the body replacement technique. I just haven't gotten into a situation where the damly bits would smack into the opponent's face after the substitution, so I haven't used it yet. While everyone was dumbfounded yet again, Anko laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. That's a fantastic idea. Can I have one as well? Yuna shrugged her shoulders, and after another wave of her hand, a second mannequin appeared, which Anko quickly stored into her space-expanded weapon holster. Anyway, another way I plan to use it is placing it next to the Reikage while he is asleep and record his reaction when he wakes up. All I could. Okay, we got it. It's for prank purposes. Yuna nodded in agreement with Hinata's remark. Indeed, but now it can be used for some sexual education. Only when they heard Yuna say sexual education did Ino and Haku manage to get out of their daze. When I asked for some advice, I meant something along the lines of small things that we might oversee or stuff like that, and nodded. Cough hands-on tutorial. Yuna dismissively waved Ino's words away and crossed her arms in front of her chest. I'm not doing things half-assedly. You asked me to teach you, so I will do so to the best of my ability. You can still opt out now, but you will no longer be allowed to leave after I start my lesson. So, what will you do? At first, Ino and Haku were somewhat uncertain whether this was a good idea, but after realizing that whatever Yuna wanted to teach them would probably improve the fun they could have with Naruto, determination filled their eyes. Very well, I agree. Yes, me too. Yuna nodded in approval and was just about to start the lecture when someone knocked on the door. Seemingly not even realizing that allowing someone to enter a room that had a naked male puppet lying on the table would be weird, Yuna allowed the person to enter. Karen entered the door and immediately froze in place when she saw 5 women surrounding a naked male mannequin. I'm not sure what kind of play this is, but I'm in. Immediately after regaining her bearing, she uttered those words, causing Yuna to chuckle. Well, I'm teaching Naruto's girlfriends how to suck DCK properly. Well, that and a few more things. Ino and Haku blushed furiously when they heard Yuna's words, but Karen ignored them completely. I see, I assume the whole thing will be terribly embarrassing and shameful, so as I have previously said, I'm in. And it was exactly as Karen said. The lesson Yuna gave them was the most embarrassing and shameful thing Ino and Haku had ever experienced. Still, considering Naruto's reactions to what they learned the following night, the duo was rather satisfied. Meanwhile, the experience wasn't even in the top 10 of her most embarrassing experiences, but Karen enjoyed herself nonetheless. Chapter 344, Triggering the Switch. Inside a vast hall deep inside the Uzumaki compound, 2 pairs of fists met, resulting in a powerful shockwave that caused the 2 clashing people to slide backward. Hee, not bad, Naruto. It seems like you haven't been slacking off. Naruto could only smile wryly when he heard Yuna's words. Well, I would rather not be thrown into hell due to you finding out that I was slacking, Nae-san. Yep, that is definitely what would have happened if you did. Naruto shivered a little and nodded his head while lowering his stance. Anyway, should we stop playing around and get a little serious? Of course, let's get started. I started covering Yuna's body while an armor of wind surrounded Naruto. Both of them vanished from where they stood, and yet again, their fists met, but this time, Yuna's ice was trying to freeze Naruto's wind armor, while Naruto's wind tried to shred away Yuna's ice. The duo separated again, but this time they didn't stop fighting. Naruto's hand slashed downwards, causing wind blades to fly at Yuna, which he swiftly dodged while counterattacking by shooting a few icicles at Naruto, which he smashed apart with his fists. Next, Naruto took out a 3-pronged, orange kunai and tossed it at Yuna, which she swiftly countered by taking out a snowflake-looking one, which she threw towards Naruto's. Just when the 2 kunai were about to clash in midair, Yuna and Naruto vanished from their position and reappeared in the place of the previously thrown kunai. Klein. Yuna and Naruto clashed with kunai in hand. Now that I think about it, how about we have some fun with this, Nae-san? Sure, I'm in. 10 clones of Yuna and Naruto popped into existence and started tossing 6 kunai each, and moments later, hell broke loose. The clones and the originals teleported away to the freshly thrown kunai. They started clashing with each other, resulting in an incredibly chaotic, 3-dimensional fight where Yuna and Naruto were constantly teleporting from kunai to kunai with a total of 20 clones doing the same while tossing even more teleportation kunai around. Meanwhile, Hinata, Anka, Karen, Ino, and Haku were spectating the fight through a reinforced glass window and were slightly bewildered by the spectacle they were witnessing. Well, now they are just showing off. Hinata chuckled when she heard Enko's words and nodded in agreement. Although the way the duo was fighting looked incredibly impressive, there was honestly not much of a point in it. Considering how much chakra it costs to create 10 clones and have them constantly teleport around, only people like Yuna and Naruto would dare to use such a wasteful technique. Naturally, that didn't mean that it wasn't an extremely deadly technique. A few minutes later, Yuna's last clone popped, and Yuna and Naruto landed on opposite sides of the training ground with satisfied expressions on their faces. Well, that was fun. We should do this more often, Naruto. Indeed. Anyway, let's turn up the heat. Red chakra that was yellow at a few places burst out of Naruto and created a four-tailed chakra cloak under his wind armor. Very well, let's kick it up a notch. Just like Naruto, Yuna created a four-tailed chakra cloak around her, but unlike Naruto's, hers was primarily blue with some white and red streaks woven into it. Boom. A loud explosion echoed through the room when Yuna's fist smashed into Naruto's forearm, and another when Naruto's free fist, that shot towards Yuna's stomach, was blocked by Yuna's free hand. Naruto's tails started lashing out at Yuna, but she efficiently managed to block that with her own tails, and moments later, the duo separated again. While Naruto got on all fours with his tails pointing at the spot in front of his mouth, Yuna stood straight with her right palm pointed at Naruto and her tails pointed in front of it. Massive amounts of chakra were compressed in front of Yuna and Naruto and formed a dangerous-looking, black chakra orb. Biju Dharma. They shot the chakra balls simultaneously, and the moment they met in midair, both of them exploded, obliterating the ground where the two jutsu clashed while producing a small mushroom cloud. When the dust settled, Yuna and Naruto were revealed, and both of them seemed to be rather unbothered by the massive attack they just produced. Neither of them were wounded nor seemed particularly exhausted. Well, Naruto, how about we crank the dial up to 100? I noticed your clone gathering natural energy for a while now, and I'm rather curious to see the fabled sage mode with my own eyes. A wry smile appeared on Naruto's face when he heard Yuna's words. "Nei-san, you could have at least pretended that you didn't notice." "Oh? I guess you wanted to surprise me, huh? Sorry about that. Do you want me to act surprised after you pop it?" Naruto couldn't help but roll his eyes when he heard Yuna's words. "I don't mind a little pity from you, but let's not overdo it, please. If you act all surprised after you already admitted to knowing about it, that would be a little too pitiful." "Haha, true, I guess. Anyway, show me what you got, Naruto." Moments later, Naruto's clone popped, and Naruto could feel natural energy flash his body. He immediately controlled it and mixed it with his chakra, producing Senjutsu chakra. Simultaneously, his chakra cloak changed color and became yellow, with black markings mixed in all over it while changing form to look like a full-length Hari. Additionally, Naruto's pupils turned into a black cross. "What do you think, Nei-san?" "I call this Kurama mode." However, Yuna didn't answer him immediately and instead inspected Naruto's new form. Only after she was satisfied did she nod in approval. "How interesting, I wasn't expecting natural energy to have such an interesting effect. Good job learning Sage Mode, Naruto." Well, Hisoka told me about this, but she herself wasn't entirely sure how this stuff worked. Naruto was rather happy about Yuna's praise, but he felt like something was off moments later. His gaze met Yuna's, which caused Yuna to smile at him. Naruto immediately took a step back while cold sweat started flowing down his back like a river. "I messed up. Nei-san, how a been?" He he. An eerie laugh escaped Yuna's mouth, causing shivers to go down his spine. You are radiating quite a bit of power there, Naruto." "This should be quite fun tilde, yes, quite a bit of fun tilde. Nei-san, ca." Before Naruto could say anything else, incomprehensible amounts of battle intent flooded the training ground, while a face-splitting grin appeared on Yuna's face. "Let's have some fun, Naruto." "Ah, shit, by fed up." Chapter 345, Yuna vs Naruto. Loud explosions echoed over the training ground as a blue figure with 9 tails and a yellow figure without tails were constantly clashing against each other. Every time they clashed, the shockwave would gouge up the ground, but despite that, there wasn't even a scratch on the walls and ceiling of the battlefield. Naturally, this battlefield wasn't chosen randomly. All the walls and the ceiling were heavily reinforced by seals, which meant that even Yuna and Naruto in their current forms would find it hard to break through it with brute force alone. Another clash, another explosion, and another shockwave, which forced the duo to separate quite the distance away from each other. Additionally, it was somewhat noticeable, Yuna with her blue chakra code was sent sliding backward further than Naruto. A gleeful expression appeared on Yuna's face that caused Naruto to smile helplessly. "Ne-san, how about we stop here? I think I have shown you how far I have improved, right?" Stop. Why would we stop? Aren't things about to get real fun just now? Come, Naruto. The pressure surrounding Yuna increased even further as her chakra grew much denser while becoming much more intense in color, making it impossible to see Yuna's real body anymore. Simultaneously, the temperature in the area started dropping at a rapid pace, and within a second, most of it was covered in a thin film of ice. Yuna vanished from her position, causing Naruto's eyes to widen. An instant later, Yuna appeared before him and smashed her chakra-coated hand into Naruto's crossed arms, sending him flying, while a small patch of ice appeared where Yuna's hit landed. Naruto quickly regained his posture and dodged another one of Yuna's punches and immediately counterattacked with a strong sideways kick, which was avoided by Yuna's ducking underneath it. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise when 9 blue chains burst out of Yuna's back, forcing him to manifest 9 chakra tails to block the chains before they could ensnare or pierce through him. However, Yuna's assault wasn't over yet, as a dense mass of black chakra condensed in front of her mouth, while the same happened to the fox-like chakra mouth Naruto quickly manifested on his hand. Boom. Another explosion ravaged the battlefield as 2 Bijudama met at point-blank range, sending Yuna and Naruto flying into opposite walls of the battlefields, which caused the barrier surrounding the arena to fluctuate. Silence reigned over the battlefield for a moment before loud laughter echoed over it. Ha ha ha, fun, so much fun. Yuna came staggering out of one side of the arena, her chakra coat gone, while her whole body was covered in bloody gashes. A short moment later, a slight rustling was heard from the other side of the arena as Naruto came walking out of the smoke cloud in a similar condition, with a wry smile on his face. "You really don't know how to restrain yourself, do you, Ne-san?" Restrain myself? I don't know what that phrase means." Naruto's smile became even more helpless, and he was just about to call it a day when his gaze met Yuna's, causing him to take a step back instantly. "You still have some more to show me, don't you, Naruto?" Naruto shivered a little and instinctively took another step back. "And no, Naruto, don't lie to Ne-san, okay tilde?" When Naruto saw Yuna's twisted smile and heard her weirdly soothing tone of voice, he knew there was no point in pretending. "So you really know no restraint, Ne-san?" Moments later, Naruto's yellow chakra cloak returned, but this time, instead of keeping his human appearance, it kept growing until it looked like a gigantic yellow fox with black stripes. The fox opened his mouth, causing his deep rumbling voice to echo over the training ground. "Are you sure you want to do this, Ne-san?" Ha ha ha, of course, let's party." Just like in Naruto's case, Yuna's chakra cloak reappeared and kept growing until it was the same size as Naruto's, but instead of yellow, the whole thing was blue with the occasional white and red streaks. Unlike Naruto's form, which looked like it was made entirely of chakra, Yuna's looked more like an actual fox. However, Yuna wasn't done yet, as the whole fox was quickly covered in pure white ice armor while a gigantic ice sword appeared in its hands. "Come, Naruto, show me how far you have reached." When Naruto heard Yuna's words, he couldn't help but have his fighting spirit ignited as well. That's right, throughout his life, he spent a lot of time training, and now it was the perfect time to show Yuna how far he had come. "Very well, Enii-san, I will show you my full power." The giant fox Naruto clapped his hands together, and when he separated them, a small Bijudama appeared in between them. However, Naruto was far from done as the Bijudama kept getting bigger, while something else changed about it. It started emitting a loud buzzing sound as 4 shuriken-like blades appeared around it. The moment it reached a diameter of around 5 meters, and Naruto felt that he was about to lose control over it, he threw it towards Yuna with all his might. Massive Bijudama, Rasen Shuriken. Yuna saw the massive ball of destruction flying at her, causing her face to twist in glee as her battle intent became even more potent. She lifted up the gigantic sword she was holding at a seemingly slow pace. Despite that, it was already firmly lifted above her head before Naruto's attack could fly half the distance. In that case, I won't be going easy either. Ice sword combination style, ALO freezing heaven-splitting calamity. Meanwhile, everyone in the spectator stand had stiff expressions on their faces when Yuna and Naruto both used an attack that could undoubtedly level Konoha as a whole in one shot. All of them had the same thought at the same time. Will the barrier really hold? So instead of pondering about something they didn't know about, all gazes landed on Karen, who was the most knowledgeable about seals beside Yuna and Naruto. To everyone's surprise, there was a severe expression on Karen's face as she was swiftly drawing seals on one of the walls, and a short moment later, the wall compartment opened and a small orb popped out of it. Karen swiftly presented the orb to Hinata and Anko, who had the most chakra in the room. Inject your chakra into this, fast. Although the duo was surprised by Karen's unusual commanding tone, they still did as they were ordered and injected their chakra into the orb, resulting in the arena's barrier becoming more visible. And moments later, the two techniques met, causing the earth to shake and the arena to be flooded with insane amounts of wind and ice chakra. Meanwhile, the barrier surrounding the battlefield was wobbling like crazy, causing the people spectating the fight to sweat quite a bit. Still, after seeing Karen's confident expression, most of them calmed down significantly. It took a full minute for the rampaging storm inside the arena to calm down a little. And as soon as it did, a woman and a man were revealed who were both lying on the ground unmoving. Well, the woman was at least moving her mouth. Ha ha ha, damn, that was awesome. As soon as the other person heard the outcry, a loud groan escaped his mouth. Nei-san, that was definitely too much. I'm sure Ino and Haku will scold me for going too far. Ha ha ha, isn't it fine? Just soothe them with some sweet talk and promise them to pamper them all night, and everything should be fine. Sai, not everything can be solved with sweet talk and sex, Nei-san. It can't. It has worked rather well for me so far, though. Instead of answering, a wry smile appeared on Naruto's face while he chuckled in amusement. Moments later, Yuna shakily got up and walked towards Naruto. Can you stand? Are you out of your mind? Of course not. Hee, want me to princess carry you? Naruto's face deadpanned when he heard Yuna's offer. I would rather not. Damn, now I really want to do it and tease you with it, but I guess I could let you off easy for giving me such a fun fight. I'm thankful for that. A short moment later, Hinata, Anko, Karen, Ino, and Haku entered the still ice-covered battlefield with worried expressions. Remember, Naruto, sweet talk and sex. Yeah, no worries. I understand, Nei-san. Chapter 346, Pushing the Blame no Jutsu. Moments later, Hinata was the first to reach the exhausted duo, and as soon as she saw that both of them seemed to be mostly fine, a pout appeared on her face while her glare landed on Yuna. No matter how I look at it, that was definitely too much, Yuna. Yuna chuckled in amusement when she saw Hinata's cute pout. Indeed, but what can I say? Naruto simply didn't stop egging me on. Hee, switching blame, sweet talk, sex. It seems like I forgot to mention one of the steps to Naruto. As expected of you. There are only very few who could assassinate their little brother this ruthlessly and still be proud of it. Hee, I know. I'm that awesome. Oh oi, Nei-san. What the hell? Meanwhile, Hinata, Ino, and Haku's glare shifted from Yuna to Naruto, who immediately started panicking a little. No matter how you look at it, if it is about egging someone on, then Nei-san is definitely the most likely guilty party. Well, that might be the case, Naruto, but weren't you the one who did that last transformation first, Tilda? When Naruto heard what Yuna had just said, he could only open and close his mouth like a fish out of water. Although that was indeed the case, wasn't it still Yuna who wanted to continue fighting? Just when Naruto was about to string together an argument to prove his innocence, Yuna started speaking again. Well, honestly, we both overdid it there, so I guess we are both equally to blame. Yet again, Naruto was shocked by Yuna's statement. Although it was still better than taking all the blame, in his opinion, the escalation of the battle was at best 10% his fault. How did it suddenly become 50%? However, he also knew that he had to cut his losses or things would become worse for him. Haha, Nasan is right. I guess we got a little carried away there. Hinata's pout made a return as her gaze returned to Yuna. Seriously, wasn't that dangerous? Karen even had to make a move to reinforce the barrier surrounding the training field, or that last clash might have actually shattered it. Yuna nodded her head in approval at Karen's action and gave her a proud smile. Yes, I noticed what she did. Well done, Karen. I will definitely reward you plenty for that. Ah, thank you, Yuna-sama Matilda. As for the barrier breaking, that was highly unlikely. What Karen did could, at best, be considered increasing the safety margin. Isn't that right, Karen? Karen, who was still on cloud nine since she earned herself a reward, eagerly nodded her head at Yuna's words. Before Hinata could even attempt to question her on whether that was actually true or not, Yuna swooped in and snaked her arm around Hinata's hip. See, my cute little Hinata, despite the situation looking somewhat chaotic, everything was under control. Or maybe you want to give me a little body check to see if there are any dangerous wounds on my body. As Yuna said that, she slightly loosened her clothes, allowing Hinata to take a peek at her breasts, resulting in a slight blush appearing on her face. And maybe later. Coffee anyway, I was really worried about you when you were engulfed in that chakra storm for over a minute, but since you are fine, everything is good. Yuna started petting her head, which caused Hinata to smile happily. Meanwhile, a mischievous smile appeared on Anko's face as she started speaking. Hee, Yuna must be rather weak and right now, how about we use our chance and pounce on her now, Tilda? Oh, then I might as well cash in my reward while we are at it, Gahi Tilda. Before Hinata could bring forth any arguments, Yuna picked her up by her waist and walked next to Anko and Karen, who both put their hands on Yuna's shoulder. Well, then, it's decided. CYA later, Naruto, Ino and Haku. Oh, and Naruto, good luck Tilda. Moments later, the group of four teleported out the frozen arena, leaving a dumbfounded Naruto, Ino, and Haku behind. Naruto could only feel a little helpless when he saw how easily Hinata was satisfied. Anko and Karen weren't a problem from the start, so that left only Hinata as a hurdle to overcome, after all. As for Naruto's current situation, it wasn't looking too good. Ino and Haku weren't as meek as Hinata regarding sexual matters, nor were they as obedient as Karen, and weren't like Anko either, who only thought of having fun. However, Naruto also had a few cards he could play that wouldn't work out well if Yuna tried them. His eyes took on an innocent gleam as his mouth formed into a pitiful pout. You two believe me, right? After all, there is no way I would be the one egging on Nasan. You also must have felt her battle intent, right? She simply tricked me into revealing my moves first so that she could push the blame on me. Ino was just about to start scolding Naruto for pushing the sparring match too far when her eyes met Naruto's clear blue eyes that shone with innocence, causing her resolve to falter instantly. That impression was only enhanced when she heard Naruto's words. Right, if it is a fight between Yuna and Naruto, then it is only natural that Yuna would be the one pushing the battle forward. As for tricking Naruto into revealing his moves first so that she could redirect the blame, that is very likely as well. I see, so Yuna was the one pushing the fight forward one-sidedly. That makes sense. While Ino was defeated instantly, Haku wasn't fully satisfied yet. Naruto noticed that and quickly continued speaking. Sorry, but could you help me stand up? The room is still frozen and it's getting rather cold. Haku moved without even thinking about it and immediately helped Naruto stand up and allowed him to use her shoulder as a crutch. Haha, thanks, Haku, as always, you are really kind. Haku's complaints about the fight immediately evaporated as well when she saw the massive sunshine-like smile on Naruto's face. Damn it, using that kind of smile from up close is too unfair. There is no way I can scold him in this kind of situation. When Haku picked up Naruto, Ino quickly moved as well to support his other side, resulting in his smile becoming even bigger. Hee, having my two beautiful girlfriends supporting me like this, I'm already feeling much warmer. Ino and Haku both blushed a little before meekly nodding their heads. When Naruto saw that Ino and Haku no longer seemed to want to scold him, Naruto decided to go for the final blow. You too, I'm really sorry for what happened today. I really should have tried to stop Nei-san from pushing things this far. When Ino heard Naruto's apology, she hastily shook her head. It's not your fault, Naruto. After all, we all know how rampant Yuna is. Instead of commenting on this, Haku simply nodded her head, causing Naruto to give them another innocent smile. However, inwardly his facial expression was twisted into a scheming smile. Just as planned. Instead of using Nei-san's ridiculous methods to somehow divert the topic into having sex, pleading innocent while pushing all the blame on Nei-san is much more effective. How in the world do you still manage to pull off that innocent facial expression? Shouldn't it be twisted like a demon by now? Ah, that's because people always compare it with Nei-san's. Compared to that madness-ridden smile, mine automatically appears innocent. Okay, point taken. That makes sense. Chapter 347, yet another story of the past. In an abandoned dead end deep inside one of the most prosperous cities on the planet, a woman with ice blue hair and pure white eyes was looking at the dagger stabbed into her heart in bewilderment. Kazumi, why would you do something like this? The person she talked to, a young woman with long black hair that was wearing a maid outfit and a collar around her neck, smirked at the freshly stabbed woman. I'm sorry, Yuna-sama, I had to do it. But why? I never mistreated you, did I? For a split second, Kazumi's facial expression faltered and showed some grief, but moments later, her sneer returned as she pointed at the collar around her neck. What a jerk. At the end of the day, I'm just a slave who's collared to your whims. Yet again, bewilderment appeared on Yuna's face as she looked at the collar around Kazumi's neck. If you had just asked, I would have removed it instantly. I trusted you, Kazumi. I started genuinely liking you. Astonishment appeared on Kazumi's face as she looked at Yuna in utter confusion, but moments later, she smiled at her disdainfully. Removed it if I asked? Bullshit. Do you really think I would believe that someone as greedy as you would let go of something they owned? As for liking me, what a jerk. As if it was possible for an emotionless monster like you to like anybody. Only by killing you can it be freed from you. Genuine confusion was visible on Yuna's face when she heard those words. I'm used to being called a monster, but why is being emotionless such a bad thing? By now, I have listened to quite a few old people talking about cultivation, and they always advise that emotions are just a hindrance for cultivators. While Yuna fell in deep contemplation with the wound in her heart still bleeding, Kazumi turned her back to Yuna and was about to run away when something else came to Yuna's mind. Who told you to do this, Kazumi? Even if she killed Yuna, the collar she wore wouldn't simply come off. Someone had to promise her to free her as she backstabbed Yuna. Kazumi was about to turn around and ridicule Yuna for asking a question like that despite being near death, but when she met Yuna's eyes, she couldn't help but shiver in terror. The way Yuna was currently looking at her was why she decided to betray her. Cold, emotionless eyes that seemed to be capable of staring straight into someone's soul. Although Yuna had never looked at her like that before, just witnessing it from the side terrified her. And now that Yuna's eyes were firmly fixed on her, she felt like the mere act of thinking about lying might take her soul. IW was the Supreme Flame Tiger Heaven-burning sect. The moment she said the sect's name, Kazumi couldn't help but shudder at her own behavior and immediately turned around and ran away, leaving a bleeding Yuna behind. Grief filled Yuna's face as she saw Kazumi running away and leaving her behind, but moments later, the grief vanished and was replaced by hatred. I see, it's those shitheads again, huh? I should have genocided them the moment they started coming after me. Yuna flicked her wrist, resulting in a small golden pill appearing in her hand. She looked at it unwillingly and then tossed it into her mouth. Damn it, I wanted to save this for my next breakthrough. I almost died multiple times while plundering that old bastard's cough while trying to gain that venerable ancestor's inheritance. As soon as the pill landed in Yuna's stomach, it started dissolving, resulting in a cold feeling spreading through her body. Strictly speaking, getting a dagger pierced into the heart was deadly for a cultivator at her level, but the pill she just took was on another level, so right now, she could pretty much feel her heart knitting itself back together. As expected, those old farts that speak high and mighty about the best way to cultivate don't know shit about it. I should have never listened to those senile retards that only know how to spend most of their lives behind the safe walls of their sect. The poundness in Yuna's cheeks slowly vanished as the pill she just took replenished her blood at an incredibly fast rate. So you want me to show more emotions, huh, Kazumi? A few minutes later, Yuna stood up. The wound she had just received was already fully healed. Her face twisted in grief and anger due to someone she trusted betraying her. Very well, Kazumi. Let me show you my emotions. The grief and anger slowly vanished from her face as a slight grin. Well, seems like the head honcho finally decided to crawl out of his hole. As she said that, she tossed the head of the freshly killed sect patriarch away with disinterest. When the sect's ancestor heard Yuna's words, his eyes became red in fury as the air around him started to shimmer due to the heat he was emitting. You damn beast! Why did you attack my sect like this? What have we ever done to you? Naturally, Yuna was utterly dumbfounded by that absurd question. What did you ever do to me? Are you joking? When I was just a young brat, one of your disciples tried to rape me. Then, a few years later, swarms of your disciples were hunting me down to avenge that piece of garbage, and after getting rid of all of them, even an elder attacked me. Finally, that garbage patriarch who just lost his head bribed my servant to betray me, almost killing me in the process. The old ancestor almost spat out blood in anger when he heard Yuna's tale. After all, the sect he created over 1,000 years ago was destroyed because some random young master couldn't keep it in his pants. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves. After all, he was pretty close to death already due to his age, and he would rather not die of a heart attack while the person responsible for his sect's demise was in front of him. He flicked his wrist, resulting in a giant sword that was decorated in all kinds of runes and gems to appear in his hands, which he swiftly pointed at Yuna. At this point in time, all of that is no longer of concern. This is a feud to the death. You destroyed my sect, so as the last act in my life, I will take yours. An insanity-ridden grin appeared on Yuna's face as her fighting intent burst forth yet again. She clenched her right hand, resulting in a sword entirely made out of ice forming, which she quickly pointed at the old ancestor as well. Ha ha ha, very well. I'm getting all excited. It's been a while since I had a good fight. Come. Both of them vanished from their position, and moments later, their weapons clashed with each other, resulting in a massive explosion of fire and ice. However, neither of them backed down, as their speed and power increased even further, decimating the few parts of the sect that weren't torn down yet. The old ancestor couldn't believe what he was experiencing right now. After all, Yuna wasn't even a fraction of his age and could actually fight on par with him. Additionally, the sword that she seemingly created out of her own ice could match his own, which was considered one of this world's greatest weapons. What a monster! I thought that I could spend the last few years of my life in leisure after killing her, but it seems that I will have no other choice but to sacrifice the last remaining years of my life to get rid of her. Whatever, it does not matter anymore. At least I will be able to get rid of this menace for the rest of the world. Yet again, the two swords clashed, but this time instead of continuing the fight, the two combatants separated from each other, giving both of them a brief rest. A solemn expression appeared on the ancestor's face as he looked at Yuna, who still seemed to be perfectly fine despite how many people she had fought so far. He took a deep breath to strengthen his resolve and started talking. You are ridiculously powerful for your age, but unfortunately, your story ends here. If it was a simple one-on-one, I might lose against you, but as long as I'm willing to sacrifice my life to take yours, there will be nothing you can do. He. An eerie chuckle escaped Yuna's lips when she heard the old man's words. Oh my Tilda, so scary Tilda, but aren't you forgetting something? Where do you think we are right now? The ancestor was confused by Yuna's words, and despite looking around, he had no idea what she was talking about. We are at the headquarters of my Supreme Flame Tiger Heaven Burning sect, so what? Do you think I would be reluctant to destroy what little still remains of it? In that case, you are even more insane than I thought you were. Ha, indeed, I'm totally insane. I only noticed that a few hours ago, by the way. But no, that is not what I'm talking about. As Yuna finished speaking, the atmosphere in the surroundings seemed to shift, resulting in the old ancestor becoming wary. He didn't know what was going on, but he got a terrible feeling about it. You didn't really think that I would make it snow just for the fun of it, did you? The old man's eyes widened in shock when Yuna finished speaking. Without a second of hesitation, he decided to turn around and flee, but it was already too late for that. Ice domain. Yuna's voice seemed to echo through space itself and reached every corner of the remaining clan compound. Usually, a domain is something like a small bubble covering a cultivator in their preferred elements, but there are certain circumstances where a domain could expand. For example, if a huge defense formation was devoured by the cultivator's preferred element. Right now, the old ancestor realized why he had such a bad feeling. He somehow managed to stumble into the belly of the beast and was now trapped inside it. The only place that was currently not hostile to him was the small bubble of his own domain that was surrounding him while being pressured from all sides by Yuna's massive domain. The ice and snow inside the compound started shifting and turning, and moments later, hundreds of icicles were pointed at him, making him chuckle mirthfully. She can not only create such a massive domain with the help of our array, but she can also finally control it, huh? Just how much control does she have over ice? What a monster! Despite no longer seeing himself killing Yuna, he prepared himself for combat. Since he readied himself to die anyway, he might as well die fighting with his head held high.